Hey everybody, it's Saturday evening and I have not had time to get anything done with the fish today, so all we're going to be doing tonight is simply topping this tank off, and I might get in there and wipe the glass down a little bit. If you look closely, you'll see I've got a lot of algal growth. This tank does get some afternoon sun on it, and that does actually increase how much algae I get growing in it. So it's not really in need of a water change. It probably wouldn't hurt if I did one. I just don't have the time or feel like doing it tonight. But it does need some water added in there. And so we're going to top it off. But before I top it off, I'm going to take a sample of the water. We're going to check the nitrates. And we're going to see what's going on as far as the nitrates in this tank. And then after I've topped the tank off, we'll have a look at what it looks like. So this will be a really basic before and after. But we'll talk more about the nitrates and what we find with that afterwards. So sit tight, and I'll see you in half a second. Alright, so the nitrates were about where I thought they were going to be. They're getting close to about 40 parts per million, but they're probably not quite there yet. So as I suspected, I'm not too worried about the water change. I don't really know when the last time I did one was, but just topping it off tonight was fine. This is the nitrate test. That's a little darker than it would be because it's been sitting for about an hour. And we are also looking at it under a 2700K light, so that certainly makes it a little bit more reddish appearing. But we're probably sitting between 30 and 40 parts per million, somewhere around there on the nitrates. And that's fine with me. So while we were in there, we got the glass wiped down, and then I went around through all of the Java fern here. And this is the Java Windelov. You can see how it's sort of fingery towards the end. And I basically just raked my fingers through it, the way you might run your fingers through your hair. And I wound up pulling out a ton of little babies. So I really was able to thin out the Java Windelov. And don't forget, I do sell that. So if you're interested, I'll put my email down below, and you can check that out. We'll make arrangements to get you some of that. I've also got water sprite. I've got some temple plant downstairs and a few other things. So again, if you check out my email down below, you can contact me, and we'll make arrangements about that. The other thing I wanted to talk about with this tank is the temple plant. I cut it way back recently, and I realized that I'm suffering from a CalMag deficiency, and I know that I have no calcium or magnesium in my water, so a CalMag deficiency makes sense. What I did about a week ago was I took the crushed up eggshells from, I don't know, maybe 4 eggs, and I sprinkled them all throughout the tank. Every now and again, you'll get a little glimpse of something white. I honestly don't know if those little bits right there are actually the eggshell or not, because I did grind it up very fine, almost a white powder, and then put it in there. So the eggshell should be able to dissolve fairly easily, and it should be able to make its way down into the substrate where the roots can have access to it. So something like that, even if I was suffering from a CalMag deficiency, and I were to add a an inorganic type way of getting it to the plant where it would be instant, it would still take some time for the plant to recover from the deficiency. New growth is going to have to come in, and that new growth is going to have to generate with the calcium and the magnesium in it. So the way I'm incorporating it into the plant is not necessarily organic, but it's done through a much more natural and slow process, and that's kind of what I meant by that. That's not actually the proper use of the term organic. But instead of adding a liquid fert into the water, I've put crushed eggshells, which are going to dissolve slowly, and hopefully as they're dissolving right around where the roots are picking all that up, I should be able to get some of that calcium and the magnesium from the eggshells into the temple plant. Now, remember that the temple plant is growing at a much more rapid rate than all of my other plants in this tank, because these are all submerged and therefore only have limited access to CO2, which the plants need to build themselves. It's basically what they build themselves out of, is the air, and they use the energy from the light. So once they break the surface and they're exposed to atmospheric air, whether we're talking about elevated CO2 levels or just normal, standard background levels, the levels in the air are way, way higher than the levels in the water. So once a plant is out of the water, it can really take off and start growing vigorously. And my eggshell solution may not provide enough. I don't have foods or ferts or tabs or anything in any of my tanks, but I may wind up having to do something with this one if I can't get this CalMag issue sorted out. And so far, it doesn't look like we're having a ton of success. Some of the newer growth coming in is still pretty pale. Now, pale doesn't necessarily mean calcium deficiency, but it's not a good sign either. We're not getting any really good, vigorous green growth coming in new. But I will say that at least doesn't look like it's got a CalMag deficiency at this point. So that is good news. So we'll see what happens over time, but I just wanted to get another reading on the nitrates here. I am still talking about, in an overall sort of sense, we're going to be discussing the nitrates and their effect on your aquarium and so on and so forth. And if you haven't been following along, this German blue ram right here, and this is a long fin ram. I don't know if it's got any other kind of genetics going on in there or not, but it was sold as a long finned German blue ram. And these fish are supposedly notorious for having to be in very low levels of nitrates, and they're supposedly unable to survive, if you get above 20, 30 parts per million nitrates on any kind of regular basis. So I'm not deliberately subjecting this fish to high nitrates or anything. I'm simply keeping it in my tank the way I would keep any of my other fish in any of my other tanks, and we're going to see if that elevated nitrate level really does have an impact. I do not believe it will. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this. Again, if I thought I was harming the fish, I certainly wouldn't be doing this. So, again, we'll have to wait and see. I could be wrong. I may be harming the fish, but I don't think I am. I think everything is going to be just fine. And so far, he looks fantastic. His color is great. His behavior is perfectly normal. And everything is good. So make sure you're subscribed. That way you won't miss any of the updates on this tank or anything else. I've had a bit of a hectic weekend. Hopefully over the next couple of days I'll get a few videos that I've got rolling around in my head sorted out. I want to talk about brackish water a little bit. I do want to talk more about the nitrates, and I'm currently in the middle of an experiment where we're testing the pH on some of my water that I've brought upstairs from downstairs, and we're going to see if the change in environment and the change in the CO2 levels affect my pH at all. So we're about halfway through that experiment. I'm working on putting that video together, and again, if you're subscribed, you won't miss that one or anything else when they come out. So thanks for watching this one. Don't forget, this is my 20-gallon open top office tank. Thanks for watching. I'll see you real soon in the next one.